Welcome to the Trueface podcast. I'm Robbie Engel, your host, and just a guy trying to figure out life. We've all read and learned about the peace and freedom that Jesus makes possible, but we struggle to experience it. We get stuck in our relationships with God and with other people, and we wonder, is this really all there is to it? What am I missing? Where am I stuck? This conversation with Jon Ferguson is designed to help you take a step in trusting God and others to live more fully alive. So whether you're watching this on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcast platform, don't forget to subscribe, share, and join our growing community of Jesus followers at trueface.org. So Trueface Tribe, I'm super excited to introduce you to a newer friend of mine, Jon Ferguson. Welcome to the Trueface podcast, man. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks, Robbie. Great to be with you. Been looking forward to hanging out for a bit and catching up and just chatting for a few minutes. Thanks for the invite.
Jon and I have been chatting for about 30 minutes, catching up, and this is really like our third hang. We had lunch somewhere, I can't remember where, and then got another conversation somewhere. And every time I was like, I want to be like Jon. He's one of those guys you meet that I'm like, this guy gets it, and I want more time with him. So selfishly, whoever's listening to this, I invited him on the podcast so I could get more time with him to learn from him, because Jon is an old man. He just hit 60 last week. Happy birthday, Jon. How does it feel to be in your 60s, man?
I haven't been there long enough to know yet. So it's funny that you mentioned it, though, because there's different things that kind of remind you. And I, like millions of other people, bought a Peloton bike back during COVID. And I actually still use mine. But under your little profile, it says like your decade.
Yeah.
And so instead of saying, like my handle name and where I live, Chicago, and then 50s, now it says 60s. And I'm like, wait, I'm not 60s. I'm 60.
No, you're 60s, bro. Own it. Name it, claim it. So Jon's been doing relational ministry for a long time up in Chicagoland area. Jon, tell us about yourself. Give us some context for how you got here, your passions, and your journey.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was fortunate. I grew up in a Christ-following home. Had a couple of parents that just loved Jesus in a really genuine, authentic way. And there's just really no way to share my story without beginning there in some way, because we know what an incredible impact family and your home can have. And so, my dad was a church planter. Started a church when I was 2 years old. Incredible evangelist. We saw people, come to the Lord every week, and we did it old school at that church. It was like the invitation hymn, "Just as I am," and you got to come down front, proclaim your faith in Christ, and get baptized right there. And I just saw that week after week after week, and I think a lot of that, and just tremendous youth group, lots of great memories, propelled me to want to go into ministry full time at a fairly young age. I think even in like late high school, kind of knew that's what I would do. And so ever since good night, I went to college, and right out of it, I started probably when I was like 20, doing some kind of part-time ministry. So I'm, pastor, church planter. Now I get to help catalyze city movements. I live in Chicago. We've got a church planting movement in Chicago. And I'd say just about everything that I do, I hope, reflects my passion to help people find their way back to God. Married, my wife, we actually last week, not only had turned 60, we celebrated our 35th wedding anniversary the same week. So it's kind of a big week. That's a lot.
That's a big week.
I know. And I've got
Congrats,
two adult kids. And so, yeah, lots of stuff going on. It's good.
You co-founded a community Christian church in Chicagoland and Exponential and New Thing, which has had some changes lately and become part of Exponential. I've been going to Exponential for years and just been super blessed by it. I was at Community Christian this past year up in Chicago and just loved the initial feel, the welcoming environment. I was like, of course, this is Jon's church that he planted. You've written tons of books, and I say all that to say, in meeting a lot of people, from the first time I met you, your presence showed a practice that this book that I read, which is, sorry, Jon, this is the only one of your books I've read. I just need to confess that. It is the book Bless, 5 Everyday Ways to Love Your Neighbor and Change the World.
Yeah.
But I read it and I was like, this is an outflow of his real life and passion, because you made me feel blessed and listened to well and loved in our relationship. So there's an integrity affirmation for you, Jon, that I felt like this came out of a real
Good.
real
Well, I hope you were blessed by it.
I was, man. So tell me, I told you before, I'm going to be teaching some guys this in a couple weeks. I'm going to be teaching and walking through Bless and bringing this into my community, because it is so simple and so profound that when I have a mentor, Dennis Latimer, who said, Robbie, there's complexity, and then there's simplicity, and then necessary complexity, and then you get to elegant simplicity. You go simplicity into complexity, and then to elegant simplicity shows a depth of expertise that distills it down into something so simple that you feel like it's simple, but it's not. There's incredible depth to it. So buy the book, Bless, download the app, which I've done, which is super cool. But give us context. Why did you write Bless? And then I want to dig into what Bless stands for, the 5 principles.
No, great question, Robbie, and I'm super excited for the group of guys that you're going to be leading this through. So fill me in, give me a report as you're in the middle of it. Any way I can help, love to. But like I said, I grew up in a Christian home, I've experienced the life-changing hope of Jesus. But honestly, I think when it came to sharing my faith, even on a personal level, most of the ways felt forced, and too often kind of like a sales pitch. Maybe you can relate to that. And not only that, Dave and I, we saw the same thing kind of happening in our church, at Community Christian Church. Our mission from day one has been helping people find their way back to God. Simple phrase, helping people find their way back to God. Truthfully, though, I think what we found is people were more like hoping people would find their way back to God more than they were actually helping people find their way back to God. Yeah. And so, and this was quite a few years into the life of our church, that mission was on our website, on the signs, on anything printed. It was everywhere. And people believed it. They really bought into it conceptually. Yeah. But they just weren't practicing it. It wasn't something that they felt like they knew how to do, which is incredible, isn't it? That's our mission. And so we kind of went on a journey and began to ask, well, what did it look like for Jesus? And what we discovered really was that Jesus simply bless the people and places he came across every day. And so I think in short, Bless is really about kind of getting back to that. It's about, I think, seeing people the way Jesus saw people and loving people the way Jesus loved people. And it goes way back. It started in Genesis with Abraham, where God said, I will bless you and you will bless the world. And when you start, awakening yourself to how pervasive this idea of blessing is in Scripture, it's kind of mind-boggling. But at its core, it really is, I think, a reflection of what we saw Jesus do in his life and ministry, and so we can emulate that. We
were talking before this about discipleship framework, as we're both kind of groups nerds, and how to do this thing, and we define discipleship as the process of growing in love of God and others. And Jesus loved perfectly. And if a lot of times we'll nerd out about the difference between discipleship and evangelism, and in reading the book, I was really going, because you started this tension of like, we don't know how to share the gospel, share the good news. And when we think of evangelism, we think of that painful, like Romans Road, awkward conversations. If you die today,
explosion.
That's right. If you die today, what will happen? So I went into Bless, the book, going, okay, this is an evangelism reframe. Yeah. And in discipleship space, which I wake up thinking about, going, how do we get unstuck, mature in our walk with Jesus? Mature in love. Well, maturity always looks like becoming more others focused. And there's a part of that art of selflessness and loving other people, growing in love of God and others, discipleship, which Bless was incredible as a discipleship framework of how this looks as we mature of Christ in us. Then it always will overflow onto other people. And how we love other people is really felt like what you were teaching me and blessing me with in Bless. I wasn't even thinking evangelism, but it feels like the same. How do you process between evangelism and discipleship? Or is this just the essence of how to love people?
Yeah.
Which is both.
No, I think it's both, and you've heard this before. I think there's kind of, we want to talk about discipleship and evangelism, but I know you think that really those two come together. I mean, you can't really have one without the other. If you're a disciple, then you're naturally evangelizing. But maybe the problem is we weren't really naturally evangelizing. We were creating all these methods and modes and tactics that really just burdened people and never quite felt comfortable, both from the person doing it and the person receiving. Not only did we feel uncomfortable actually approaching it that way, oftentimes we made people feel uncomfortable receiving it that way. I don't know, maybe you've seen this before. George Barna did this study where he asked people what they value in a person, whom they would talk to about spiritual matters. And then he wasn't asking Christians; he's just asking like your neighbors and my neighbors, right? People that these weren't people that claimed to be Christians; these were just random people. And there were three qualities that people mentioned that they would look for in someone with whom they would talk about spiritual matters. And the first one was they want someone who will listen without judgment. They want someone who will allow them to draw their own conclusions. And they want someone who can speak confidently about their own story. And that's it. And I mean, in essence, I think they want someone to be their friend.
Yeah, that's right.
But that sounds kind of like Jesus, right? I mean, he was known as a friend of sinners. So
that's right. And it doesn't sound like a lot of Christians I know. And the way that we are encouraging each other as Christians, I think back to like high school, college, like, okay, what does this mean to follow Jesus? And what I was told was that awkward thing that did feel like pressure to me and others, which is the opposite. In a lot of ways, it feels like it's antithetical or opposed to listening, allowing to draw own conclusions, and sharing authentically a story, because it was like the opposite. It was like telling people and making sure I say the right things. Yeah.
And I think we would have to admit that Christians have a PR problem. I mean, the surveys will tell you that we're known as being judgmental, hypocritical, and narrow-minded. I mean, that's kind of how the rest of the world sees us. And so it's almost like we've got to double down on what it looks like to truly love our neighbors and friends in the way Jesus loved his neighbors and friends.
So walk us through the BLESS acronym and what that looks like.
Okay. All right. And stop me if I go too long, but I'll try to get through the 5 real quick, and we can kind of reflect on them, or as I touch on each one, feel free to jump in. But it's an acronym, and I have to say up front, just because it's an acronym does not mean it's a tactic, does not mean it's like the latest fad. Turns out it's just easy to remember.
Yes.
And so I will say, in the places we've trained and equipped people in at Community, Christian Church, and other places, it really does help. It's easy to remember. People can take it with them, and I think that's the important thing about it. And so the B is for begin with prayer. Not a great way to start the acronym, right? Begin with prayer. But again, every one of these go back to the life of Christ. Before Jesus did anything, he prayed, right?
Yeah.
Before he chose his 12 closest followers, he went out to the mountainside and he prayed. And so we too can start blessing our friends and neighbors by simply going to God and say, God, who is it that you want me to bless today? I mean, just imagine if everybody just started right there. Before your feet hit the floor in the morning, just pray that simple prayer. Lord, who is it you want me to bless today? And, I like to remind people too that, prayer isn't just preparation. And I didn't say this, but prayer actually is the greater work, right? Oswald Chambers said that. And so, when you pray, you're actually living out the mission of Jesus. Like that actually counts. I was challenged a while back. Somebody told me, there are people who cross your path every single day who have never once had someone pray for them. And they didn't mean to stop that person in the middle of the street, make a big scene, raise your hands. They just meant literally no one's ever prayed for that person. I mean, Robbie, we've not talked about your family growing up, but my mom and dad have been praying for me before I was even in the world.
Yep.
But what a gift we can bring and give to people by simply beginning with prayer. So that's the first one. That's the B. L is for listen. Jesus asked something like 300 questions in the Gospels. I mean, he listened way more than he talked. And I think we'd have to agree, sadly, today Christians are known much more for talking than listening.
Yep.
But man, I mean, listening is one of the true great acts of love. I mean, it just shows people that you care. We've all experienced it, right? You've been in situations, Robbie, where you're talking to someone, but you can tell like they're super distracted, looking at their phone, looking past you. They're thinking about what they're going to say next. But what a gift. I mean, to actually listen to people. David Augsburger was an author, and he wrote this, and he said, being heard is as close to being loved that for the average person, they're almost indistinguishable.
I love that quote. I have it underlined.
Isn't that good?
And I mean, it is so powerful. And Dan Siegel talking with Michael Cusick about like the 4 S's of fun. If love is meeting the needs of each other, what are our needs? Our primary need to be seen, soothed, safe, and secure. If our primary need built into us is to be seen, then to give someone your attention through listening is the greatest gift of serving them by seeing them, especially in a world of distraction and iPhones. Like, which is the simplicity of this, how you articulate it in the book is like, by listening, that is it too. Just like prayer is it. Like you do that, like we're trusting
right.
and inviting the Spirit to do what he does in the kingdom. Your kingdom come, your will be done. Like we are part of the kingdom of God by praying.
Totally.
By listening, we are loving people, which is evidence of our discipleship by loving. And that's just attention and questions.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I look like I just wasn't listening to you because I looked down away as you were talking about active listening, good practices, because I was looking at down to the book. I was like, oh yeah. So on page 56, the 4 H's of listening. Do you remember those offhand? Because I got it right here. Okay.
I hate to admit it.
No, I'm glad I embarrassed you on the podcast. They're so good. It's history. Tell me your story. This is like, okay, 4 H's of listening. Just ask them about themselves. All of us want to talk about ourselves. Ask somebody about themselves. Heart. What do you love? What's your favorite thing? We love to talk about what we love. Gators, team, restaurant, vacation, whatever. Then so history, heart, habits. What are you into? What do you like to do? And then hurts. Like, tell me about that situation. How are you coping with that? How are you doing in your transition, John, with all this stuff out of the church? Not that that's a hurt. I wasn't assuming transit. It's been a beautiful thing for you. Not a hurt. But even those were like, there's a practicality that I read those. I'm like, oh yeah. Keeping those in your back pocket. Yeah. So simple and so difficult.
And sometimes it's just picking up on the little things. I'll give you one quick example. My wife's really good at this. And, on our good days, we're really thinking about, okay, how can we bless people when we're out and about? So, we talk about in the book, create a list of people that you're praying for and asking God to help you know how to bless them. But then there's those serendipitous, like unexpected moments throughout the course of your day, wherever you might be. This has been a couple years ago now. Our local pharmacies, Walgreens. I don't know if you have like CVS or what do you have in your neighborhood, but ours is Walgreens. And the gal that checks us out there, with the cashier, her name is Gigi. And we've kind of gotten to know her over the years. And so we were in Walgreens. We were buying a couple items. Somehow the topic of ice cream came up. And Gigi just offhand mentions, I love mint chocolate chip ice cream. I didn't even give it a second of thought.
Yeah.
We're walking out of Walgreens. My wife goes, oh, we got to bless her and go get some mint chocolate chip ice cream and bring it back. And she said, Grater's is on sale right now at our local grocery store. I don't know if you know what Grater's ice cream is. It's out of Ohio. Best ice cream on the planet. Really expensive, but it was on sale for $6 a pint. I'm like, we're not going to do that. Walk all the way to the grocery store and get ice cream. She's going to think we're nuts. My wife's like, no, we're going to do that. I wasn't being.
Let's go, Lisa.
Yeah, right on. And so we went and got it, brought it back, and just didn't make a big deal. Just kind of, Gigi, you mentioned you love mint chocolate chip ice cream, and so we couldn't help it. We knew it was on sale over here. It's our favorite ice cream, and I hope you enjoy it. It was just like a fun kind of way, but it was because my wife was really listening in an active way to know, hey, there's an opportunity there to bless somebody. So
I love that story.
Yeah.
So if you listen well, you got 4 H's, heart and history and habits. What's E?
Yeah, well, that story I told leads very well into the next letter. E is for eat. We listened. She wanted ice cream, and we ate ice cream. But again, meals were central to Jesus' ministry, right? His first miracle was at a wedding feast. He had dinner with tax collectors. One of his most amazing miracles was feeding 5,000. What did he do with his disciples on the night before his crucifixion? He shared the Passover meal. So, I mean, sharing meals was pervasive all throughout his life and ministry. And I think every one of us would agree that there's something about sharing a meal with someone that moves almost any relationship from acquaintance to friendship faster than almost anything you can do. And it's funny because my wife and I have to remind each other once in a while, if we're about to extend an invitation to somebody, we've all had that thought, well, they probably aren't available, or they probably can't come, or it's last minute, it's too late. Guess what? People love to be asked.
Yep.
Right? Who that feels great. Even if you can't go, you feel like, oh, wow, somebody cared. They offered.
So true.
So yeah, eating is a vital way to bless. And what I love about this, you don't have to add anything to your busy schedule. You eat 21 meals a week already, probably if you have 3 a day. Just invite somebody to join you for one. So yeah. So begin with prayer, listen, eat. You going to move on to the next one? First S in bless is serve. And what we find is that if you begin with prayer, you truly listen, maybe share a meal together, you almost can't help but notice how you could best serve the people that you're praying for, listening to, and sharing meals with. Yeah. My wife Lisa and I, we ended up raking leaves for one of our neighbors who was out of town last fall, I think it was. And I hate raking leaves. All right. But we knew it would mean a lot to them. And it was just a simple, super simple way to serve. Not a big deal.
Yeah.
Jesus said he didn't come to be served, but to serve. And, I think when we serve from relationship and not from like obligation, it also, and if we are praying and listening and sharing meals, it also ensures that serving is about the person being served and not about the person serving, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
So yeah, the first S is serve.
Expound on that a little bit, or expand. Is expound a word? Expand. I think
know.
It's expand.
It's like
Expand's a little safer since I'm on a podcast.
I want to look that up now. Expound. I like that.
So expand on that a little bit, because when we hear serve, we think, crap, we got to help them move, right? We got to and I feel scarcity mentality in my own life of time and energy and money. I think it's expand a little bit on what serving can look like, some different ideas, because if we listen well, you served her with that ice cream, which does come at a cost. Service does have a cost.
Sure.
And is that a factor to go, God, how can I give my life away? Is it time, energy, money? It can look all kinds of ways.
Right.
I want to just expand my thinking to look more creatively at how I serve people.
Yeah. And I do think it goes back to this listening. And picking up on just small ways that someone might need some help, or a small way you can serve somebody. One of our neighbors recently had surgery. They lived in our building. We live in the city, so it was kind of close quarters. She had a husband and a young child, and we just knew that he worked full time. It was going to be rough going for them. And so my wife and I went up to the store. We just put a little care package together. Super easy, brought it by, just dropped it off. Just seemed like a little way to kind of serve them and lift their spirits when they were going through a tough time. Didn't cost a whole lot, didn't take a whole lot of time. Yeah. It was pretty simple. Once in a while, my wife will be on the way to the store. We live about 2 blocks from Target, and we've got several neighbors, and we talk about when we go to Target, because we live in the city, we say, oh, I'm going into town, going to Target. And we'll just kind of let them know, hey, can I get you anything while I'm going? Can I pick up anything?
I love that.
So yeah, I think
it's a thoughtfulness.
Yeah, I think what you're saying, Robbie, is that we maybe make it bigger than it has to be, and sometimes it's those little acts of kindness and service that can go a long ways. Yeah.
And I'm not in trouble if I go from B to L to S and skip over a meal.
No. That's a great question. It is interesting, though. These are sort of like somebody that I knew that was really smart used to use the term epigenetic. Is that a real word?
I don't know, but
if we can expound, I think we can do something in an epigenetic way. I think what it means is there's like an order that does kind of progress. And I think there is with this, but it's also, you got to look for the opportunity. And it may be that today, for whatever reason, there's no real opportunities beyond beginning with prayer, and that's fine. Again, that counts.
Yep.
But it could be that you just have an opportunity to listen or serve or share a meal. Yeah, I think you just look for whatever God's putting in front of you and how you might be prompted by the Spirit.
So for some of the listeners who want an epigenetic podcast, they want me to complete the last S before I start asking all my other questions. So let's do that, and then I'll go back to my other. Did I use that right?
I'm asking you because it's expound and epigenetic now. We're just way over our heads. So the last S in bless is story. So again, it's begin with prayer, listen, eat, share meals, serve, and then story. And I think, again, if you take the time to pray, listen, eat together, share a meal, and serve in a practical and meaningful way, chances are you're going to get an opportunity to share your story and the story of how Jesus has changed your life. And, it's not about forcing anything. I think what this is really about is about living in such a way that people want to know why you are the way you are and the difference that Jesus has made in your life. And, this is not to downplay proclamation. Proclamation's really important. I think maybe, though, how I was raised and how I grew up, and so much I think in our world was so much about proclamation, we kind of forgot about the relation. So let's get relation and proclamation. And I think some really amazing things can happen, and the Holy Spirit can work in some profound ways.
And you're like a MA in spiritual formation, Wheaton guy, right? Yeah. I mean, and the beauty of that is we overcomplicate things. This is how the kingdom works and it's like who was one of the greatest missionaries in Jesus's time was like the Samaritan woman. Really? Like she went and shared her story.
Right.
And said, this is what God did in my life. Mm-hmm. I was talking to a buddy who, this past week who, there's a lie of shame in his life where I don't know enough. I'm a hot mess. I'm still drinking too much. I'm doing all this. And I'm like, bro, you are like one of the greatest missionary disciplers I know. Because you are you're loving Jesus and loving people in relationship, which is evangelism and discipleship through sharing story.
Totally. Yep.
It's a real thin line between those two. So begin with prayer. Don't you wish B started with P?
I know.
P started with
practice
the other
prayer. No, you want it to begin with a B.
Sorry.
Benediction.
Plus doesn't work as well, right? But you were spot on with 4 out of 5. You had to be creative on the begin with prayer, but it's really prayer at the beginning, and then listen, and then eat. As Jesus modeled, this is one of the greatest opportunities we have with 21 meals. Oh, yeah. And then serve, and then story. Just be with people. And the George Barna, the listen, allow to draw, on without be able to be listened to and confidently. That friendship thing is so much more significant than we think. Of love God, love others. By this they'll know that you're my disciples. This is like listening and being a friend and caring for people. And all of us are fully capable, which is why we want to diminish it and abdicate responsibility, but we are all in mission, 100%.
Yeah. And I love the way you said that we're all in it, because it is a team effort. And I think we sometimes think that we have to close the deal, and you just don't know how, we all play different parts, the Holy Spirit, and that's the beauty of Bless. It's just something anybody can do. And if you just think about those aspects of Bless, wouldn't you love to know that somebody cared enough to pray for you? I can't imagine anybody not loving that, or at least being open to it. And then being listened to. Everybody wants to be listened to. Sharing meals. And again, like I said before, even if you can't do it, being asked, being served, or somebody even offering to serve. These are just things that make people feel special. And I think, it's just power in that.
I appreciated in the book at the beginning, you gave context and said, prayerfully discern what area of your life you want to start making bless part of your practice of how you love, how you grow in the process of loving others, which is bless, which is where, like, as Trueface, defining discipleship is the process of growing in love of God and others. Disciple making is intentionally walking with someone else to help them grow in love of God and others. How you do that is bless. It is so simple and so dynamic, and all of us are fully equipped to do that. And you gave me permission at the beginning of the book. You said, prayerfully consider where I start to apply this habit in my life. Don't try to do it everywhere. Yeah. Give me a little context as we land the plane of, like, practically individuals, and then how do we incorporate this in our communities, and what would you recommend and guide me as I'm all in, Jon. I need to start being more intentional and making this a practice. So coach me on.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's lots of different directions I could take that. I mean, I could help it as you were talking, though, Robbie, to think, do you think practicing bless in your marriage might be helpful? Probably. What about with your kids? Yep. Workplace? Yeah. Neighborhood? Yes. Yeah. I mean, honestly, but it's such a helpful framework. I think it just keeps you intentional, but it's simple at the same time. I will say this, and I don't know if this is where you were going, but I think it is important, if you think about equipping and teaching other people to do this, that you begin practicing it yourself first. You know, and it's kind of a no-brainer in some ways, but I think sometimes we read something, we grab a hold of it, we're like, oh, this is so great, but I would encourage you, read it, pray about it, and begin practicing it yourself. And again, there's different ways to do that. You might come up with a list of 4 or 5. We talk about that in the book. It could be your neighbors. It could be your workplace. There could be some other context. But start intentionally, praying every day for those people, asking God to help you bless them. But then also be aware of those serendipitous moments where the Holy Spirit taps you on the shoulder and says, hey, that person right there, you've got an opportunity. Don't miss it.
That was what was helpful for me in building it into a habit, to refine it, to go, God, who are the people that I'm going to pray for every day, to start the daily habit, beginning with prayer it's like work, hot dogs guys, neighbors, family. I had a list of 30 and I didn't do it. And so it's like, who are the 6 I'm going to start with? Then that habit starts showing up everywhere. Yeah.
And I can't help it. I mean, you mentioned the Bless app earlier, and I think that's where that app really does, help. Because what it does, it maps your neighborhood and shows you the names of the people and where they live. And then you can choose people that you say, okay, Lord, I really want to focus in on praying. You can take notes on those people. And sometimes it gives you their formal name, but then you can write a note so you know their actual name. And then you can, if you're kind of into this, it kind of gamifies it in kind of a fun way too, where you can keep track of how many times you prayed for that person or shared a meal or had a conversation or served them. So it's a really helpful, practical tool, I think, that also helps people put this into play. And if I could mention one other resource, is that okay at this point? Because I don't know where you wanted to go, but I don't know if I mentioned this to you or not before, but my wife actually wrote a Family Bless resource. Super helpful. And
let's go.
She's an early childhood educator. That's kind of her thing. She consults with preschools and elementary schools. And so she created this super helpful toolkit for parents and kids to practice these 5 bless rhythms at home. There's Bible stories, memory verses, activities, conversation starters. And I'm really excited about families beginning to recognize that, hey, they can be kind of the epicenter of bless, in their neighborhood. You can find the Family Bless resource at Amazon, or if you want more information, you could also go to sunburst.info. It's SONBURST.info for more resources and ideas on that.
SONBU.
My wife, right?
SONBURST.info.
Info, yeah.
Let's go. I'm getting it. There's Lisa.
There you go.
I'm on the app now.
Oh, are you? Oh, cool. Good.
Yes, I love this. I'm getting it.
Good.
Jon, as we land the plane, I just I appreciate you, man, and the partnership and how fun it is to meet, to introduce you to my Trueface friends listening in on the podcast. And as we land the plane, I just want to let you pray for us, leave us with anything in your head, just anything you have for the tribe as we land the plane.
Yeah. I think I would just remind people that you don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to have all your ducks in a row. You just have to be willing to love your neighbor the way Jesus loved you. How's that? Keep in mind these simple practices, and prayer counts. Let's just start there.
Prayer counts. And on my note in front of me, who do you want me to bless today? That's the prayer.
Oh, yeah.
Starting with praying for them and then listening. And then a couple other, one other thing that just resonated with me is that we are all waiting for somebody to ask us questions, to be our friend. We love to be asked invited. And so, and we're all waiting for somebody else to invite us. We're all waiting for somebody else to be the friend that we're looking for. And our opportunity to just invite people, even if they say no 5 times, that is a win, not a loss. In our shame and insecurities, we feel like it's I'm rejected. They feel loved every time they're invited. All of us do.
Absolutely. Yeah. And all you have to do is remember the last time you were asked.
Exactly.
Like, were you offended? No, you were like, oh, I'm special. Somebody liked me.
So, who do you want me to bless today, God? And then my secondary challenge of invite somebody to a meal and just listen to them. You can do B, L, and E, and then see if anything for S and S come up. But B, L, and E are pretty, do it this week.
Right on.
Who do you want me to bless?
The serve that might come out of eating together is doing the dishes. So just there you go.
Come on. John, you're amazing. Y'all go check out Jon Ferguson, Exponential. You can Google him, find him, and go to Sunburst for the family stuff.info. You're awesome. Thanks, John.
Bobby, thank you so much. I just really appreciate you and what you're doing with Trueface and helping us figure out what discipleship looks like. And excited to continue our friendship and work alongside you.
Heck yeah. Thanks, bud. See ya.
Yep.